Well, actually, speaking of God-given talents and getting excited, you actually once starred in a show with Pamela Anderson, appropriately or maybe inappropriately called Stacked. And
Yes.
not only did you star with her, but if I'm not mistaken, you were her love interest. Now, did that give you the biggest ego ever? I can't imagine many things giving you a bigger ego than someone casting you as the love interest of Pamela Anderson.
Yes. And by the way, Pamela Anderson, speaking of God-given talents.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know, anytime my ego sort of gets stroked and goes up, it gets taken right down by any comment from anyone in my inner circle. And I'll give you the perfect example. You know, people would ask my wife, say, "Oh, your husband's working with Pamela Anderson. Are you, nervous at all? Are you threatened?" And she just said, "Good luck to him. Let's see Pamela
Jewish
Anderson."
wife comment.
Right.
Yes.
Like, let's see Pamela Anderson even look at him in a way that would show any interest at all. Yeah. And not because I'm a hideous human being, but I'm just not Pam's type. If you look at Tommy Lee or all the other guys she's dated, I am the antithesis of a Tommy Lee. So she would say, "Yeah, good luck. You have." She's like, not threatened in the least bit, and of course she was right. But yeah, no. So yeah, it was a boost of an ego because just to get cast in a leading role. Forget that it was opposite Pam Anderson. That's like the icing. But the fact that they were like, "Oh yeah, this nebbishy dorky guy will be a lead in a big Fox sitcom created by Steve Levitan, who went on to create Modern Family, who had come from creating Just Shoot Me and a writer on Frasier." And I was like, wow, this is a sweet gig. I remember saying to my manager once on the Fox lot, "This is too good to be true, isn't it?" And then 19 episodes later, it was too good to be true. But the best story about Pam for our Jewish fans that they would love is, so it was my birthday and we're rehearsing. And when you're rehearsing a sitcom, the lights and the glitz and the glamour and the 200 people that show up on tape night, which I moved to Thursday night, which was Friday night, which is, if you're interested, I'll tell you that one after. But all of that stuff during the week is dark, and it's literally just the cast and a director and an assistant director, and it's just all of us on stage rehearsing, going through the script. I'm looking at you again because I love looking at you, but I should be looking there. I apologize. So we're going through the script, and all of a sudden, in the middle of this quiet, small rehearsal, the kids may not want to hear this one. It's not that bad, but what's a nice word for a stripper? A woman who dances? A dancing woman?
There's no nice word.
Okay. So one of those types shows up to the set. Now, again, mind you, it's my birthday. And this nice young woman approaches me. Now, I didn't have any control over this. I didn't know what was happening. But she started, let's just say, doing a little dance for me in front of our small group. And there was music. And she was just dancing a little bit. And nothing got crazy. But there was some dancing. For this,
it might lead to dancing. That's always the punchline of those Jewish jokes. It led to dancing.
It did lead. The dancing led to mixed dancing, and that is a great joke, by the way. And then Pam turns to me and she goes, "Elon, happy birthday! I got you this stripper." And then here's the best part. She goes, "And she's Jewish."
Oh my God!
She goes, "Do you know how hard it? You know how hard it was to find a Jewish stripper? I had to research. I found you a Jewish stripper." And I went, "Pam, this is so nice of you, but I have one of those at home. I could have used the other kind." But anyway.
I mean, that's such a great story, but also it shows how, in a weird way, how sweet she is. She actually gave it thought. She put thought into it.
She's a sweet Canadian, down-to-earth girl. And there's such a difference between regular Pam and then paparazzi Pam, and it's night and day, and she really is. And speaking of her sweetness, to tell you about the Shabbat story, so I'm not so Orthodox, but I keep Shabbos. And Stacked was a job I got, and then they were taping Friday night, and I was like, okay, how do I approach this? So I went to Steve Levitan and I said, listen, I would love it if any other day of the week, you know, the last sitcom I did, which was In-Laws, I was a producer on, I was the star of. So I was able to say, fellas, ladies, we're doing this any other night but Friday. So we wound up taping on Tuesdays. Just so you know, most sitcoms tape Friday nights. It's when you can get the most audiences and it's just the best night at the end of the week. So, and then you just do a Wednesday to Tuesday schedule. So we taped In-Laws Tuesday. I said, is there any way we could push this back a night, maybe tape Thursdays? And Steve went, I'm cool with it, but you know, Pam's the big star here. I mean, I was just her co-star. You got to go to Pam. So now I have to ask Pamela Anderson if she would let me keep Shabbos and we could tape on Thursday instead of Friday. So I go over to Pam and I say, listen, I had this little dilemma. I know, you know, I'm Jewish, but I'm like very, very Jewish. I had a one-man show that I did years ago and I premiered at the Montreal Comedy Festival. I called Elon Gold, half Jewish, half very Jewish, because really I'm very, very Jewish and love keeping Shabbos. It's one of the greatest gifts of humanity. And I did not want to break it for this little sitcom, as important as it was to me and my career and all that stuff. So I went over to her, I explained it to her, and she like almost interrupted me and she went, I love Shabbos. Are you kidding? I go to Shabbat dinners all the time. My friends have Shabbat. Yeah, she goes, I love Shabbat. And then she stopped. She was so cool about it. And then she stopped and had her Pam moment. And by the way, I'll preface this by saying she is a super bright lady, but we all have our moments of not brightness. And she went, wait,
blonde moment.
A blonde. I didn't want to say it because
sorry, I can
my wife's
say it. It's
blonde,
okay.
and many people out there watching are blonde, but you said it.
I said it, not you.
She had the blonde moment and she went, but that'll shorten my weekend. And I went, no, it's the opposite. You see, if we tape Friday from 6, it could go till midnight, and then your weekend starts late Friday night. If we tape Thursdays, we tape Thursday till midnight. Friday, the day after a taping, you just come in for like 2 hours. You do a table read, and then you go home and the writers rewrite everything that didn't work. And I went, so you could actually start your weekend Friday at like noon. She goes, I love Shabbat even more.
That's an amazing story. Yeah.
Yes,
that's an amazing story.
Written. So it was done. We taped Thursdays.
Yeah, she's also, I mean, I've seen that she came to Israel, I think, a while ago, and she had some very nice things also to say about Israel.
She loves Israel. She loves our people, and you know, her and Rabbi Shmuley Boteach wrote a book about things that we shouldn't talk about because there's still children watching.
Yeah, don't get me started about Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. I'd rather take my kosher sex points from Pamela Anderson than Rabbi Boteach, but I won't go into that.
By the way, for the record, I'm a fan. I think he's a staunch, you know, supporter of our state and our.
He is. I'm just not going to go to him for sex advice. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But talking about fascinating co-stars. Okay, so one of my all-time favorite comedians besides yourself is David Chappelle. I mean, he's a genius as far as I'm concerned. He's like the new Eddie Murphy, who I consider also one of the greats. And you worked on the Chappelle Show, which is amazingly impressive. But he also, besides being a legendary comedian, he's a bit of an enigma because he dropped off the face of the earth for like 15 years or so after that show. So did you have much to do with him on that show? And what was it like being around him?
First of all, Dave, you're right about Dave. He's one of the greatest. He's one of the greats of our generation. And, you know, when you watch a Chappelle stand-up, I always say that it transcends stand-up. It's so much more than stand-up. It's sort of poetry with punchlines. And it's just beautifully written and perfectly delivered. And it's profound. And he's saying something. It's not just jokes. And so, yeah, and it's so funny that you talk about Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy and Billy Crystal were the reasons that I'm doing comedy. I just looked up to those two guys more than anyone else on the planet. I mean, there are a couple others like Letterman and Steve Martin. But for me, when I saw what Billy Crystal and Eddie Murphy were doing on SNL, I just went, I want to do that. I won't be as good at that, but I could be kind of good at it. But that looks like exactly what I want to do. And Eddie Murphy, and I've talked to Chris Rock about this, another one of our greats, said, I actually argued with Chris Rock about whose hour was better, Chris Rock's Bring the Pain or Eddie Murphy's Delirious, which I've always regarded as the greatest special of all time. And I said, you know, to Chris Rock, and not just to make him feel good, I really meant it. I think that, because he kept saying Delirious is better, Delirious is better. And it wasn't out of humility, it was out of like, Delirious is just a tour de force greatest hour ever. And I said, you know what, you could say that, I'll give you that. But as far as pure stand-up is concerned, because Eddie is so much more also than pure stand-up. He's singing, he's doing impressions. It's like the greatest variety show of all time. He's doing Stevie Wonder. It's bigger than just straight stand-up. But I said, as far as straight stand-up's concerned, is the greatest. Chris Rock just standing there for an hour telling jokes, guy on a mic, is the greatest. And then Delirious is just the greatest hour of entertainment overall, comedy, music, everything. But and then Chappelle. So I knew Chappelle when I was like 19 and he was like maybe 15, 16. And my manager, Barry Katz at the time, just literally introduced me in his office, this kid from DC. And he's like, he talks like this, my manager, Barry goes, I want you to meet one of my newest clients. He's kind of a character, but he literally talks like that. For those of you that know Barry Katz, you're now saying, wow, that is a good impression of Barry Katz. And for the other 99.999% of you, I apologize. But
by the way, Elon, that face that you just pulled is like when you do that hilarious accents bit, the British person that looks like the Elephant Man. That was the same face.
Yes. I have only so much in the wheelhouse of faces I could do. That is one of them. But he's like, I want you to meet this kid, Dave. He's from DC. He's a very talented, funny young man. And I just met him. He's just a skinny little kid. And I was like, hey, Dave. He's like, hey, man. And I was like, yeah, nice to meet you, kid. And I just immediately thought, here's just another kid trying to do stand-up, you know, like all of us. We're all just kids at the time trying to break into this. But first of all, I'm like I've been doing this like 3 years. He just started. Cut to a week later, I see him at the club. This manager owned a club, Boston Comedy Club in the Village. And my mouth dropped. And I went, oh my goodness. He's not gonna be a star. He is a star. The world will just find that out sooner or later. But he is a star. He was such a genius at 15 that I'll never forget the reaction of seeing his stand-up. You know, when you meet a guy, he's unassuming, nice kid, and whatever, kid, nice to meet you, kid. And the second you see him perform, so we were friends and sort of grew up in the clubs together. And this is a cool story, because he immediately just got famous, and Mel Brooks, you know, just hired him to be in one of his movies, and he went off to film that movie in LA, and I was in New York, and I was doing this silly little sketch show for MTV, and I was gonna do an impression of Howard Stern. You've seen my Stern, right?
Of course, I've seen them all.
Well, this is very exciting, Robin. Let me tell you something. David is not wearing pants right now, and nobody can tell that.
How did you know?
I could tell.
Okay.
But anyway, so I was going to be Howard Stern, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if my buddy Dave Chappelle could be, you're not my only buddy, Dave. If my buddy Dave could be Robin. So I asked him to do it. And this is like what a good, cool dude he is. He had 2 days off of filming on Saturday and Sunday, and we were going to film this obviously on Sunday. He flew from LA himself to be in this sketch. He went AWOL from production because not the first of many AWOL appearances, non-appearances.
Exactly.
But he went AWOL. You're not supposed to leave town when you're filming in the middle, because a flight can be delayed, and then you start Monday morning 6 a.m. and you're messing up everyone's schedule, and it's millions of dollars. They were very upset for him. But this is like what a loyal friend he is. And he was like, oh, Elon asked me to be in the sketch. I'll be in the sketch. He wound up doing a hilarious Robin Quivers. We did these 3 sketches. They're so funny. I posted them once a couple of years ago as like, wow, we did this 25 years ago.
All right, we're back. Let me tell you something, Robin. This is very exciting. Robin's going to do the news, and we got some great guests coming in. Hey, what are you guys laughing at so much? I think I'm paying them too much. Jerks. All right, let's play our new video, Baba Boobies Bonanza. Robin, you saw the tape. What do you think of it?
Well, Howard,
Hey, Robin, what's the matter with you? You have a cold?
as a matter of fact, I do.
Really? Probably a chest cold.
But so that's the kind of guy he is. Then you watch him grow as an artist. You know, I can't speak to what happened to him. You know, he's done interviews with everybody about that. But that was like a very traumatic time for him, where he's doing this super successful Chappelle show. And him and my good friend Neil Brennan, who co-created it and wrote every sketch together, they just asked me to do, speaking of Barry Katz, Dave and my manager. And it was a character. And they said, could you do your Barry Katz as a comedy club owner that tells Dave he's never going to make it and all this stuff? And then Dave gets revenge on him in the sketch. So it's now like a famous Chappelle show sketch that you could look up. But and so of course I was there for him, and happy to be on Chappelle's show. It was like the coolest show. But the short story of what he went through is he just felt that what he was doing, which is so much of what I try to do in my comedy, dispelling stereotypes, showing, you know, I love exposing the ignorance of bigotry by making fun of hatred and anti-Semitism and racism and homophobia. So he was doing that, you know, as he does, as Chris Rock does, as Pryor did. He was really just trying to show the ignorance of bigotry through some cultural stereotypes and all that. And when he felt that white people were laughing for the wrong reasons and at the wrong thing, he was like, I got to stop this. And he just went to his roots, went to Africa, and it just stunned everyone. And I hadn't spoken to him in years. And yeah.
Well, it sounds like he went, like it's the equivalent of the Jew going to Israel and rediscovering themselves on gap year or something. But are you in touch with him? Are you in touch with him at all now?
I see him every now and then, and we, you know, always have a fun hangout. You know, he's so sweet and complimentary. I'll just give you a perfect example of about, I don't know, 8-10 months ago, I'm at the Comedy Cellar performing, and when Dave walks into the Comedy Cellar, it's like the Gadol Hador, you know, it's like, oh, the great one is here. And everyone parts and makes way, and he goes on stage. So I finished. He's very cool though about not bumping people or whatever. So I finished my set, and then Dave was on stage. And when Dave's on stage, you don't go upstairs and have a drink. You watch and learn. And so like all the comedians are huddled in the hallway, and he spotted me from the stage, and he goes, "Oh, Elon Gold is here. It must be great comedian night here at the Comedy Cellar," which is like, oh, just
wow.
Like what a compliment. It's those kind of things that can last years. Like one statement like that, because show business is just rejection, 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 tiny bit of love, rejection, rejection, rejection. Oh, you have a fan who likes what you're doing, rejection, rejection, rejection. And when you hear that you can use that and take that with you for years and years. You know, now It's been months and months, but I still think about it and go, you know, every time I have a bad set or I think, I'm not as good as whatever, you know, not that I ever think of giving up, but I just think of, because you're never as bad as your worst night and you're never as good as your best night. I've had both thoughts, that I'm the worst comedian that ever lived. And then I've had the thoughts, no, I think I'm the greatest, and you're neither, of course. But anytime you go to the dark thoughts and go, no, I suck, I'm terrible, you just think, no, Dave, remember when Dave called you one of the great ones? It's great comedian night here at the Cellar. And I was just like, okay, you can just keep going. And very funny ending to that story is, from the stage, he said, so what were you talking about, Elon, when you were up here? And I had to yell, you know, from the back, I said, Well, it's funny you should ask. I was just talking about my observation that I finally figured out why dogs bark at black people, because that bothers me. You know, it bothers me that dogs bark at black people. And he was like, why? And I said, because dogs are deathly allergic to chocolate. And he said, so it's almost like in their little dumb dog brains, they see a person possibly made of chocolate coming towards them. And they're like, and Dave said, oh yeah. He said, like, without missing a beat, he's like, yeah. That's like with black people and sugar, because, you know, hypertension is a big problem in the black community. So he goes, or salt, right. Sorry, he goes, that's why black people with salt, hypertension is a big problem. And he goes, yeah, salt and cops. That's what gets the black people. And then the host, Cypher Sounds, who's a hilarious comedian, he was the MC that night. He says also, without missing a beat, he goes, yeah, and that's why they call it assault.
Oh, that's brilliant. The whole thing just sounds
The
seamless.
whole
That's
thing.
beautiful.
It was just like this moment where like Chappelle's on stage,
Yeah.
we're all in the back watching
Perfect
him.
moment.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, wow. Amazing stories, Elon. So talking about great comedians and amazing experiences. So Curb Your Enthusiasm, rather.
By the way, I hope we're recording. I mean, we're
it's
so
recording.
going so well.
I really hope so. And if we're not recording, we're doing this whole damn thing again.
Yeah, right. Always good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and hearing these stories is amazing. So Curb Your Enthusiasm is my favorite show. I mean, Seinfeld was my favorite show in the 90s. And then Curb Your Enthusiasm obviously is the start of Seinfeld. It's a more risque form with Larry David. And for the last 20 years, that's just absolutely been my favorite comedy on television. And it was being a big fan of you, of course, it was a huge surprise when I heard that you actually filmed a spot for Curb Your Enthusiasm. Now, I've seen almost the whole series. I've got another episode to go. I haven't seen you so far, so I want to know a bit more about this. How did that happen?
Are you trying to rub it in? Are you rubbing in the pain right now?
No, I'm assuming you're in the finale. That I haven't seen yet.
So,
are you not?
So here's the good news. I was in the finale. Until I got the call from Larry himself. And by the way, there's a menschy thing to do for Larry David to pick up a phone and call me.
He called you himself? He didn't get like an underling to do it? Oh, wow.
Which is what almost everyone does.
Yeah.
No star and executive producer of a show will call. Most people won't even have an underling call. You find out while you're watching. Wait, where did I go?
Have you been watching so far? And you've been like,
oh,
where am I?
Yeah. No, I knew I was in the last, and I knew before the season premiered that I was cut from the last. And when Larry called me, he just got on the phone. He just goes, I'm so sorry.
He's never sorry. He never apologizes for anything.
Never. And I was like, no. I just knew. I was like, no. What? He's like, the episode was too long, and he went into this whole thing about how your scene was so great, and we were both so funny in it, and everybody loves the scene, but it's got to be like 40 minutes, and we ran over 40 minutes. We were cutting every scene that didn't move the story forward, and that's a common thing in any movie and anything. If it doesn't move the story forward, it's got to go, and scenes are cut constantly. And I just kept saying to him, I'm in physical pain. And he would laugh. He just kept laughing. And then he would just tell me more. And I'd be like, no, still having some physical pain right now. And he would just laugh. And we talked for like 10 minutes. And he made this sweet promise, another thing he didn't have to do. I'm going to have you in next season. And then I go, how likely is a next season? He goes, it's likely. And I think they're going to be working
pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. And it was just like, I said to him, like, so this, now I know how Billy Crystal felt. He was notoriously cut minutes before the live broadcast of the very first Saturday Night Live that Billy was supposed to be in. And Yeah, and Lauren came to his office and said, you know, Billy, we had to cut the show. You know, Lauren does the Dr. Evil voice. Billy, we had to cut your, you know, your part of the show for, you know,
Yeah,
and he sat on the LIR, the Long Island Railroad, while the first ever Saturday Night Live was being broadcast, and then got every call that I'm getting from friends and relatives. We didn't see you. How come you weren't on it? Which is just the most painful thing, because you proudly tell everyone, I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live, I'm going to be on Curb. I'm with you. Curb is the greatest thing in comedy history. It is. And that's what I said to Larry when I met him in my office, which in his office, which is a story for literally an entire other interview, which I said the next time I do the Howard,
we'll do it.
we'll do it.
Yeah.
But I'll do it with you too. But I said the next time I do the Howard Stern show, that's the story to tell, because it's literally a half-hour story of how I crashed his office on my birthday, and then did it more than once. And
Oh, wow.
then the last time I did it, I said to him, I need to be a part of this history of comedy. Curb will go down as the greatest, and I just want to be, if I could be a waiter and go, here you go, Larry, just anything. He was like, oh, I was there, I was in it. And he was like, okay, yeah, we'll put you in, we'll get you. And I was like, I thought he was just being nice. And then he says to me, you know, I know what you can do, and I know what you can't do. And I go, what can't I do? What do you mean? He goes, there's things you can't do. There's things you can't do. By the way, I do a terrible Larry. I'm working on it. But I don't, that's one of the things I can't do, an impression of Larry David. But basically, that's the cadence where he was just telling me, but I know what you can do. So we'll think about you. And then cut to, I get the call, and I get to film. You know, I spent 2 hours with him. I had lunch with him before the filming. Interestingly, I actually referred to him in that lunch. It was literally me and him, like one other person, and Cara Leifer. And I said to him, you know, you're the Gadol Hador. He's like, whoa, what is that? I'm like, it's the great one. It's the great one of the
He
generation.
didn't know what Gadol Hador meant?
He didn't know. And he, you know, I just explained to him that in every generation, there's one that's the most revered, a rabbi, the most looked up to.
No.
That's him. You know, maybe it was Mel Brooks in the last generation, but he is the guy. And to get to work with him, and you want to hear another Menchie thing, before our first take, and I'm trying to stay calm, and I'm nervous. By the way, very funny, because everything Larry says is funny. He is what you think he is. Everything is a bit, and everything out of his mouth is comedy. It's astounding. Most of the things out of my mouth are not in the least bit funny. This is a guy who's incapable of just a conversation. Everything comes through this comedy prism, these great observations fly in, this fun confrontation. Everything is a Curb bit. So the perfect example is he turns to me before, you know, like an hour before we're filming, and he goes, he was still filming another scene. He goes, are you nervous? And I'm like, no, I'm not really nervous right now. And he goes, oh, you should be. You should be very nervous. And I'm like, well, I'm not. I said, I will be nervous like a few minutes before. I'll be panicked. I'll be beyond nervous. I'll be holding in diarrhea nervous. Like I'll be so crazy. But right now, I know we're having lunch first, and then there's another scene, and then my scene. It's too early to get nervous. And I said to him, because no. You should be nervous right now. Right now you should be nervous. And then I said, but it's too early. I go, you know, like when you do stand-up, Larry, you know, we both do stand-up. When I do stand-up, I am always nervous, always. People ask me, are you still nervous after all these years? Always nervous right before I hit the stage. And the second I hit the stage, I'm completely relaxed. It's like a weird thing. I can't even explain it. But I'm nervous. I'm in a panic. I'm like, this will go awful. You just always fear the worst. Like, this is going to be terrible. And I'm always nervous. But I said, I'm not nervous. I go like hours before, like maybe at like 5 p.m. if I have an 8 o'clock show, I'll be nervous. Larry goes, I wake up nervous. If I know I'm doing stand-up that night, I wake up, I'm nervous. And I'm like, that's so interesting, because the truth is, for something like a James Corden appearance, something where it's like, oh my God, this is a big deal. This is going to be seen by millions and not just a few hundred or even a few thousand. I do wake up nervous. He's right. I wake up and run to the bathroom. It's the first thing I do. When there's something big, like for this interview, I woke up nervous. When I'm doing something that I am extra nervous about, Larry is right. I wake up nervous, and then the whole day I'm nervous, and then I only relax when it starts. And I'll never forget, I've never felt more relaxed in my life than my first Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and beyond nervous for days, waking up every day nervous. Oh my God, it's in 2 days. So you're just so nervous. And then I will never forget the feeling of calm. The second I walked out, and I just looked out, and there's a few hundred people live in the audience, and Jay is right there. You peripherally see Jay and the band's over there. And then there's cameras all in front of you, and the red light's on. You know you're broadcasting to millions of people. And I was so at ease that I remember thinking, in like a minute into it, and I'm already, you know, killing it and getting laughs, going, why am I so relaxed? I should be more nervous. Why am I completely at ease? Because it just felt so right. It felt like this is what I worked towards and what I meant to do. You know, just entertain people on a big scale. And it's sort of the rising to the occasion. This is bigger than any just comedy club appearance. This is a big deal. And the more nerve-wracking and important the event, the calmer I get, which is, again, such a weird thing. If I'm performing for 5,000 people, I'm calmer than 50 people. I don't understand it to this day.
Like the adrenaline is somehow calming you or something like that.
Yeah, but just to give you a little, I'll show you something. If you want to see something very exciting to end the Larry David story, I made myself a little Larry collage. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to show this to you, but we'll get in trouble later.
Okay.
So this is my Larry David collage.
Oh, wow. An exclusive.
It's an exclusive. Wow. So this first picture is that first birthday where I crashed his office, and he warmly greeted me. This second one is the other time that I crashed his office. And, you know, and then this great picture here where I'm laughing at something he just said. And then here's us on set.
Oh, wow.
We're on set. You see us on the monitors. And then that's my trailer. You get your own little trailer. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Waiting Patient. That was the character that I played. So I made this little fun little Larry David. What would you call this? What is this called? It's not a montage. That's a bar mitzvah. What is this called?
A collage. A collage. It's like a collage. You said it right. But did you mean, I mean,
no, I didn't. I said montage. I said it wrong. Correct me when I'm wrong. I said montage. I didn't say it right.
I thought you said collage, but
then I
only speak Aussie. I don't speak French.
Now
French is out of my pay grade. It's above my pay grade. But
for the record, I corrected montage and then said collage. But thank you for, Oh,
I'm trying.
By the way, the last quick Larry David story that is just another example of how everything is a bit. Everything is a bit. I go over to him the day I'm on set. I said, hey, thanks for having me. This is so exciting. And he goes, this is after the "Are you nervous?" conversation. And I said, and he's preparing for another scene. And you just know intuitively, don't bug Larry too much. He's working. He's thinking of what to say next. He's thinking of what's going wrong in scenes prior and coming up. Don't bug him. So I just started walking away, and I just went, okay, I'm going to let you do your thing. And he just went, oh, you're gonna allow me to do my thing? That's so nice of you to let me do my thing. And then you just play with them, and you go, yeah, I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you permission. Do your thing. This is me telling you, yes, you should be doing your thing. Oh, so nice. I could do my thing. Look at that. Hey, Elon said I could do my thing. And everything is a bit. And that's why when we were rolling, it was like I had already met him a few times. I had already done the Larry, ping pong match. And it is literally like a tennis match, but it's with McEnroe. It's with the greatest. So it was so comfortable for me when the cameras were rolling. There's 3 cameras there. You ignore the cameras. It's just you and Larry just volleying at each other, one after the other. And That's
It's
why I
not,
relax.
Elon, it's not actual lines, right? You get like a
Oh my,
little bit of a scene and it's completely improvised.
it's one
Yeah.
sentence. You got to do
Wow,
this,
you
and
can
then you
tell.
just
Yeah.
go for hours. And
Because
the
you can,
other
when I'm
mention,
watching it, I'm seeing the actors, like especially Larry, he looks like he's going to laugh a lot of times at
he's
what the other actors are saying. It's almost like he's surprised he didn't hear what they were saying before. You can tell, and that is part of the charm of the
it
show
is,
because
you
everyone's
could
having
not
fun.
be more
Yeah.
correct. That A, it is part of the charm of the show, and B, he's always almost laughing. And in my
Yes.
scene, which he kindly sent to me that I'm not allowed to show, but I hope one day
Oh,
they'll let me
please.
show it. Yeah, but that's like an HBO license thing. I don't know what that is, but
Mhm.
in my scene, when I see you next time, I'll show it to you. It's on my phone,
I want
but
to see it.
we
Yeah.
can't exactly play it. You
Right.
see him genuinely laughing, and you see him almost like trying to not break. And so often he just breaks and just laughs. And one of the other Menchie things that he did right before our first take, I'm sitting here, he's sitting there. He walks over to me across the room and he goes, until you and I both feel comfortable, we'll keep doing this. So when we're like happy with what we both did, that's when we'll stop. So, and I was like, oh my God, that just totally put me at ease. I thought I had to get it right on the first take or they'd
Wow.
kick me out of there. I was just totally relaxed and just got into it and had the best time of my life.
Wow.
Besides my
I'm like,
bris.
so I have to ask, I know you said this will be the last Larry story, but I need to know about JB Smoove, who plays Leon. This is the scene stealer. From my point of view, when he was introduced about, I forget which season it was, with the Hurricane Katrina, that changed the show. The show was very solid, but that gave an added element. You have the nebby Jewish guy, best friends with the hip African-American guy, and that guy is a genius. Did you get a chance to hang out with him as well?
Yes,
JB
he's
Smoove?
one of those
Leon.
guys that I grew up with in comedy. He is
Oh, wow.
an
Amazing.
improvisational genius. He can turn anything into just comedy gold, as we call it. And
Yes.
JB is, you could listen to him tell the story better than I will, but the interesting thing to me about the story is in his head for the audition, he said, I'm not going to go in and go, hi, I'm JB. He went in as Leon and he just started. And they just went, there it is. There. And you're so right that it did elevate the show because it's the ultimate odd couple. What better odd couple? The dichotomy, those two worlds of like, wow. And then coming together, it's the best. It's all of our neurosis and stuff with his culture and how he brings that into it. And when those two collide, it's magical.
Wow, I didn't expect that you actually know him and you've known him for a long time.
Yes,
He's like incredible.
great guy too. Funny guy. I
If
know
we had more-
everyone.
yeah.
By the way, just for the record, I know everyone. I'm not even kidding. I know from Louis C.K. to Chris Rock. I've been in comedy for so long. I'm the only one in my class that hasn't fully graduated yet. I'm still sort of in the honors program. I'm in graduate school, but I'm like, every now and then I go off to a fun job and then I'm back in school. I have not graduated.